Okay, great.
Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. We're going to be live streaming here about EB-1A Strong, which is our profile building program. So for the program, we're in the middle of our second cohort. And right around now is when we start seeing progress, where everyone is actively building their profile, actually getting opportunities. I just had little one-on-one check-ins with everybody yesterday, and everyone is making significant progress. I'm really, really happy to see it. The major progress people have made so far are submitting a few papers for publication. A lot of them have secured some memberships, and a lot of them are on the pathway to securing additional memberships. They're exploring media right now, although media is still early stages. And then almost everybody has secured a judge role of some kind, and has a plan for expanding their judge role activities and all of that over the coming weeks. We only run a 6-week cohort, so some people are more or less ready at the end of the 6 weeks, but I would say that that's a little bit more rare. Usually we prep this program where we have people come in if we think they can reasonably build a profile anywhere in 6 months to 2 years. And so we do recommend that most people give themselves a 6-month timeline just to allow some of these activities to actually come to fruition and actually perform the activity, like go to the event, judge the thing, and so on and so forth. But we also work with people who have more of a 2-year timeline where they're taking things a little bit slower. And right now we're doing more of the foundational work and less of the stuff that will be super prestigious, which they will focus in on at the end. Everyone is on their own pathway for EB-1A profile building. It's very, very, very important to emphasize that you do actually need to show that you've risen to the top of your field. Profile building is not just about making up a list of activities just so you qualify for EB-1A. That approach to profile building actually is much more likely to get the case denied than approved. And so it's important to really take it seriously, really do activities that are meaningful for your field or industry, and activities that will bolster your personal and individual reputation within your field. So during our sessions, we usually have a learning session and then breakout sessions with me and with Jason where we talk about different things. One thing that has come up recently, and in the last cohort as well, but I think even more recently, is how do you determine if a profile building opportunity is legitimate? Like how do you determine if they're just trying to take advantage of people who want to do EB-1A, or if it's a real opportunity and actually something that's really good in your field of expertise. It's really difficult to tell the difference in fields that are new. So in AI, it's really difficult to tell what's actually prestigious and what's just hype or made up in the moment. Other fields may not have so much of that issue. I was talking about the field of medicine the other day. I don't think the field of medicine really suffers from this. You can kind of tell what's prestigious and what's not in that field. But it can be difficult in some of the newer or emerging fields. And so we usually talk through these kinds of questions. I can give advice and vetting on specific instances. I will say, there's no comprehensive database. There's no list of what opportunities are legit or not. And as I was talking with someone last week, it may be that you find an opportunity that starts off very, very legitimate, and then in 2 years they might turn into a totally scam organization. And so if an organization doesn't really have longevity, it's hard to trust and to know that they're always going to keep it legitimate so that nothing can come into question on your profile. We don't have all the answers, but we can coach you and guide you and work through them. Everyone is kind of learning together. Especially as EB-1A has garnered so much interest in the past couple of years. But yeah, it's one of the more enjoyable parts about the EB-1A Strong program is doing the individual one-on-ones and actually seeing people make progress on their plans in a very short amount of time, while vetting those opportunities to make sure that they're real, legitimate, and actually prestigious in their field. If you want to know more about the format, we do have a page set up for the program. It goes for 6 weeks, so 1 session a week. We assign additional videos and actually homework for you to do during the course of the week when we're not meeting. But we have already filed some of the cases based on the EB-1A Strong program, about to file a couple more as well. And they've all turned out really, really strong. So I'm really happy with how everyone has taken the materials and actually applied it. We really emphasize that bias for action, and that, I think, more than anything pays off a lot for our participants. Jason, anything to add about EB-1A strong or questions that you see come up? Everyone else, you can definitely post questions, so definitely feel free. But Jason.
Yeah, I think the way to think about the program is to think about it as an accelerator.
Mm-hmm.
So it's if you already have a strong anchor criterion, this is just going to speed things up and potentially shorten the amount of time you're going to need to, say, work towards judging and authorship and perhaps even membership. And oh, go ahead.
No, the anchor criterion is super, super important. I was just going to mention and follow up on that. So when we vet people to accept in the program, we are ensuring that they already have some kind of claim to fame or deep expertise or something in their field. And I do think that's very important. Right now, I'm seeing too many people right out of college with barely any professional experience kind of being sold the dream on EB-1A. And for them, I do think it's going to take a lot longer than a lot of the other programs are saying. Like if you're a recent grad and you really haven't accomplished anything in your career, you're really early stages, you are probably going to need at least 5 years. And 10 years might be a more realistic timeline. But there are a lot of people in the US who already have that experience level. They already have developed that expertise and accomplished some really impressive things in their career. They're just not ready for EB-1A because they never concentrated on all of the other stuff outside of work. The networking, the judging, the authoring. And so the profile building program is intended to help them get there and actually highlight and showcase their expertise so that they can generate that reputation that has a really, really strong basis. So when Jason is talking about the anchor criterion, that's what he's talking about. And that's the kind of thing that you can't really manufacture. And so you need that real basis for your claim to extraordinary ability. But sorry, Jason, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
I was just going to say something we've really seen people embrace in this current cohort is the outreach component. Even if that means reaching out to former professors or people from the alma mater or just conferences where they know people are already involved in the conference chair committees. That's what we've seen a lot of in, based on the, not just this cohort, but the past cohort and the past community we used to run. It seems like the people who make the most progress in the shortest amount of time, they're doing outreach right off the bat and as early as possible.
Yeah, and I think a lot of them have been surprised at how successful it's been. I think just the last session, we always start with updates, and a couple people were like, yeah, I talked to so-and-so, and I already am signed up for this, and they seemed almost surprised. But those relationships can take you a long way, and it's really important to keep in contact and reinitiate contact and push that forward. Not everything will pan out, and that's fine. Some people will ghost you or not read the message. People get busy. People don't really care about your EB-1A profile building activities at other points. But a lot of times, the people like professors or people who are leading these conferences are really desperate for volunteers, and they're really desperate for volunteers that they know are high quality, that will do the work and actually know what they're doing and know what they're talking about. And so if you happen to contact the right person at the right time, it works very well for everybody involved. So don't get discouraged if people don't answer you. Keep reaching out, because you will eventually reach someone who really could benefit from the work that you're doing and the services that you are offering to volunteer with. And I've been surprised at how surprised other people have been about this, but it's very, very effective.
So I don't see any questions.
One question that often comes up, so maybe of interest here, is how do you build a leading or critical role or an original contributions criterion? I will say these are actually things that we don't focus on EB-1A Strong. So we will do an end session where we talk about the evidence, the documentation, and the framing of the argument for those two criteria. But those two criteria are usually used as the anchors, right? So people coming into the course usually have a distinguished career, or they have made some really impressive original contributions that they can argue are of major significance to their field. It's hard to build those. So, I have some people who are building more towards the future. So maybe they're on the 2 to 3 year timeline, and maybe they will target original contributions, especially doing some open source contributions or working in some open source groups. But they don't know for sure if their activities are going to pan out or if their impact is going to reach the level needed for EB-1A original contributions. So whenever people pursue those activities, I say yes, go for it as long as it's in line with your professional goals, but don't view it as a cornerstone of your EB-1A profile building, because it's one of those activities where you just don't know how it's going to pan out and how it's going to be received. And then for leading or critical role, the best thing you can do is keep getting promoted, keep getting raises, keep making or ensuring that your position in the organization is recognized as very critical or recognized as leading through promotions. But again, it's something that you have very little control over. You can really push for it. You can try to do a promotion in a particular cycle, but there's a lot that doesn't really rely on you. You might get passed over because the company downsizes and they don't have room in the management team, or they might have some other initiative coming out where the project you're working on gets scrapped, and so you don't have the opportunity to prove the impact you need for the next level of individual contributor. So things can happen there as well, where you have less control over profile building for leading or critical role than you would for a lot of these other activities. For things like judge and membership and media, you can always push for new opportunities. But if it's your career and if you like the company you're at and want to stay there, sometimes you are more limited. So usually I use those as anchors, and we don't mess with them very much in profile building, other than to understand them better, understand the kinds of documentation that would work. But we focus on everything else that kind of surrounds those anchors.
I think something else that comes up a lot is how long will profile building take, or how long should I profile build for, or how much is enough profile building?
Yeah, so that's also a question I think that a lot of our cohort members struggle with too. Like I mentioned, I'm about to file a couple of the EB-1As. I just had a one-on-one call with one of them last Friday, and he was saying now I'm addicted to the profile building activities. I can't stop. I'm doing this talk. I'm doing this membership, this volunteer thing. And he's like, when will it be enough? And I told him, you have enough. You have a very strong case right now. You could stop immediately today and not do anything else, and you would have a very strong profile. And I know he's not going to do that. I know he's going to continue doing all of these things throughout his career. He's just going to need to figure out now how to make them work more for his personal life, so he's not overextending himself. But there does come a point where you just have to commit and file the case. And you can always do more. You can always make your profile a little bit better on an incremental margin, just a little bit better. But at a certain point, you have to realize that the activities that you're doing are not making a meaningful difference in the approval chances for your case. And if you reach that point where adding another judge role or adding another paper isn't really going to make a meaningful difference, you should seriously consider filing. There are some of those cases where maybe the individual activities will not increase chances of approval, but maybe getting one or two really prestigious activities would make a difference. And in that case, the person has to make a decision whether or not to submit the case at that point, where I would typically say maybe a 75% chance of approval, or focusing profile building on getting those one or two really prestigious things, which could bring it up to a 90% chance of approval. But if you've built your profile really, really strong and you're already at a 90% chance, big things are really what matters, like getting that big promotion, getting a huge salary increase, having your patent commercialized and take over with significant market share or something like that. So at a certain point, you have to commit, and we do help you decide what that point should be, although it is a decision that you will need to make for yourself.
So another question that comes up is the high salary criterion something you have to be able to claim?
No. I definitely file many cases without high salary. They're more interesting cases too. I will say, like, yeah, it's really nice if you're at a FANG company and you make the high salary. It's a really easy argument to make at that point, and it gives you that checklist towards your EB-1A. So I like to see it. I think those cases are easy. But the more interesting cases, like the cases where people have a really fascinating original contributions argument, a lot of times the market is not really recognizing their expertise and their contribution. And I would say in the cases where I don't claim high salary, they're much more interesting and much more compelling. And so I really like putting those arguments forward. It is interesting that there's that trade-off that I see so often, because I think it highlights the disparities in how people are compensated in the U.S. And like, the compensation is not necessarily based on the value that you bring. It has a lot to do with the company and organization and how they run their business, and that's pretty much it.
So Kubi-chan asks, can you provide a few examples of building profile more around participating in industry conferences, speaking conferences, be part of a panel speaker?
Yeah, so speaking engagements and profile building are usually just used for a final merits argument. So they add to your overall profile and standing in the industry. They add to your reputation. They show USCIS that you are in demand and a sought after professional to share your expertise. So speaking engagements can be really good to pursue. They don't usually meet specific EB-1A criteria though. And so, I don't necessarily say that this is something that everyone needs to pursue. I think it's nice for people to pursue this if they don't have many activities or much profile outside of their particular job. This can get people into networking. It can get them more opportunities for judging. It can get them more opportunities for potentially memberships on committees or advisory boards. So it can be powerful, but not necessary. Feel free to ask more specific questions as well. Like I can talk about how to vet opportunities or get opportunities or what stage you would want those in. I'm happy to answer more questions about it.
So for any opportunity, something you can just quickly look at is the organization that's putting together the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the more prestigious the organization behind it, the more the better the factors that you can emphasize to USCIS for the activity are. Like, I often bring up the example of the Globie Awards or Stevie Awards, and like, despite what some people are saying, like, they do work. They are evidence of judging. They do meet the criteria. They should get USCIS to check the criteria off the list. But they're not necessarily very prestigious. Like, all the information about the Globies comes from the Globie organization itself. And then if you try to look into the Globie organization, there isn't anything there. Like, they're not based out of a prestigious university or a prestigious nonprofit group. They're not really based out of an organization that is known for or does anything. They just kind of exist on their own. And so they are considered a lower quality activity, like lower quality judging activity, lower quality award activity, because they don't have a lot of those reputational basics. But if you can get into an organization that is either sponsored or supported by prestigious universities or professional organizations or nonprofits, even if it's a new kind of organization, you can emphasize the prestige of the backers and kind of rely on their reputation to prove to USCIS that this is real, that it has recognized impact in your industry. And so even if it's new, it would probably be better than the Globies. Some examples might be some of the major national hackathons that are sponsored both by major corporations and big universities. Judging opportunities at those hackathons can be really good, even if the hackathon is brand new and it's the first time or the first year that it's being put on in the United States. So something to think about. It's also a good way to vet organizations. Like if you're asking yourself, is this opportunity legitimate or is it sketchy? Go back and look at the organization, see how long they've been around, see who their backers are and their supporters are, and you'll get a much better idea of how legitimate it is.
Do you also see industry professionals target the awards criterion?
It's super popular right now. It's like some kind of trend where all the industry professionals want to target awards. I don't think it works. Like usually when I'm working on an EB-1A and someone comes to me with a bunch of criteria and then they want to add awards onto it, I just drop that criterion completely. Like I'm not going to include a Globie Award, a Noble Award, a Titan Award. I'm not going to do any of those in the EB-1A. And that's because, like I said, the awards are like self-promoting to some degree, where nobody really knows about or cares about the Globies or reports on the Globies outside of the Globies. And so it's really difficult to prove that it's an award on a national or international level. The awards criterion was more naturally designed for sports or arts, especially performing arts. Sometimes it can work for like professors or academia. Sometimes it can work for executives or other business fields. But it's a newer thing in tech, and it still has kind of a bad reputation in tech. So don't feel like you need to get on the bandwagon and get recognized and win a bunch of these awards. You really don't. Even if you do, I probably won't use them anyways. I on occasion will see something that I think is good that we can use, but it's pretty rare, and it's not one of these standard ones that everyone kind of goes for. If I do include an award, it's really unique.
On the high salary, is there a specific range that can be considered as a high salary by USCIS? And in terms of existing position in the organization, is someone at associate director considered a good benchmark?
So USCIS has different standards for high salary. They're not really looking for you to prove that you're making a high salary according to your particular position. They want to see that you're making a high salary in the field. So you do need to go broader, and USCIS will be looking at the salaries of directors and VPs and everyone in your field. They're not just going to cap it at the associate director level. USCIS also really heavily relies on the Bureau of Labor Statistics data from the Department of Labor. They don't usually get that granular with the data. Like the categories are very, very broad, and they're broken down by occupation. So they're not broken down by field, they're not broken down by position, they're broken down by occupation. And that's really the best we have. So if you are making a base salary of above $240,000, you can probably automatically claim the high salary criterion because the surveys don't really go above that. But if you are making something lower, you will need to look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics data. You will need to look at the highest level code that can apply within your particular area or field or occupation. And then look at the state data and see if it reasonably benchmarks you at the 90th percentile according to that data. That's how I usually run it. There are a bunch of different ways to run it, but I will say, as many different ways as there are to claim high salary, there are also as many different ways for USCIS to challenge it. And so even if you feel that you merit high salary, just be aware that USCIS may disagree. And even though this one seems like it should be objective, The fact that there's not satisfactory data that's broken down into all of the points, it means that it is impossible to prove conclusively. I've had people with salaries of 500,000 plus question. I had someone with $1 million bonus questioned at one point. It's not an argument that you can be sure to win. All you can do is be reasonable. All right, we'll do last question, and then I do have to head out.
So I don't see any other questions.
Okay. All right. Thank you everyone for joining the live stream. If you want more information about EB-1A Strong, just visit eb1astrong.com. We have some of the description of the program laid out there for you to see. And then, feel free to contact me on LinkedIn as well. But thank you.
Thanks, everyone.